Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another video right here on Freewheel Photos. Today, we're going to do another quick edit using ON1 Photo Raw 2025. Now, if you are interested in picking up ON1 Photo Raw or really anything over at the ON1 store, consider using the coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. It'll save you some money at checkout. I make a small commission, but that's at no extra cost to you. So it is a win-win. And then, of course, if you want to learn more about using ON1 Photo Raw, consider signing up for a one-on-one coaching call. The link is in the description box below. So let's go ahead and jump into the computer and take a look at the photo that we're going to be editing today. So here we are inside of ON1 Photo Raw 2025, and this is a photo of my girls on Thanksgiving in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I had selected this image because Thanksgiving 2024 is getting ready to come up. And so I said, you know what, I might as well just edit a photo from Thanksgiving. And here it is. Now, this was a quick little snapshot that I took of them on a swing set outside of my father-in-law's home. And you can see, there's just some inconsistencies. The overall image is exposed well, but I want to get rid of this basketball and see if I can stylize this a little bit. So the first thing that I'm going to do is come over here to develop, and I'm going to click on Brilliance AI. And I'm going to let ON1 kind of do its thing in the background and see what it comes up with for the overall edit of this image, because I really do enjoy using Brilliance AI, and I do have it tuned and it's warmed up the image. So let's see what it looks like before. So this is without Brilliance AI and this is with it. So before I get too far into it, I have turned on the local adjustments. I used to have this turned off in my edits, but now I have it turned back on. I feel like 2025 may be doing a little bit better. I haven't found a need to turn it off like I did in the previous version. So kudos to ON1 if they did anything, or maybe that's just my perception. But nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and click on the People tab here, and I'm going to hit the letter O. So you can see it made a pretty good selection of my children in this particular image. So what I want to do is just go ahead and pull up on the opacity. I think that's going to help them pop from the background just a little bit more. So maybe something like that. Let's turn it off and turn it back on. And they do pop off the background just a touch. So we'll expose this just a little bit more. Maybe make them just a little bit brighter. And I do enjoy that. We'll pull up on the contrast and maybe even push the midtones a little bit better. And let's pull down on the black point. So now if I turn this off and turn it back on, you can see it's like I just turned on the lights in that area around my girls, which I really do like the look of that overall. And I can always come back and tweak this a little bit more. Now, when it comes to the flora, let me turn this off and turn it back on. It's not really, no, I still have, let's go ahead and select this. So everywhere that you see white is where it's actually impacting, and I'm not a huge fan of what it's doing here. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn that off completely. And you'll probably won't even notice much of anything happening to the photo. So that's perfectly fine. So now that I have my basic exposure, I think it's time to start working with some of the distractions. And one of the obvious distractions is this basketball in the background. So let's come over here to our healing brush tool, and I'm going to use the new AI eraser. All right, the generative erase tool. So we'll let that go ahead and prepare itself. And if you're not familiar with the new generative erase tool inside of ON1 Photo Raw 2025, essentially it looks at your photo and it modifies the pixels around it. So that way, when you're deleting something, it uses information that's in your photo. This all happens local to your computer. It doesn't go to the cloud. And I think there's a real benefit to that. So I personally enjoy using it. I'm using the local version. There is a cloud version, but you do have to pay for that through stability AI, which I'm not using and don't plan to use on this channel. Now, I have my perfect eraser AI tool, or my generative eraser, I should say. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint a circle around this basketball. Notice that I am giving it ON1 a little bit of information outside of the basketball as well. So it's not like a perfect circle around the basketball. I'm also giving ON1 some more information. And when I let go, it doesn't do anything. And that's perfectly fine. But what I need to do is come up here to the top and click this little green generate content marker. So when I click that, ON1's going to start thinking itself through. And again, this is all local to your machine. So you don't have to worry about any issues going into the cloud. It is going to come back relatively low resolution. So it works best to remove small objects as well as objects that are in the background that don't have as much detail in it. So that way, when you start to generate your backgrounds or generate things in your photo, you'll get better results. I know that mileage has varied since the release of 2025, but I have been getting really decent results with using this tool. And if it does anything like this, like honestly, I could get by with that, right? I don't really mind the grassy patch there. But if it doesn't work, then you want to hit Command and Z or Control and Z. That's going to undo it. And then you'll just hit the green content generate again and see what ON1 decides to put in there the second time around. And you can do this a number of times just so that way you get different variations. And it does create a new layer for you. So that is something you need to be aware of when you are working with the generative erase tool. It will create a new layer inside of your project for ON1. And then that means it's going to create a .onphoto file. All right. And I like what it did this time around. I could work with that. Now, there are some artifacts over here, but there's a way that we can deal with that. So I'm just going to click on the healing brush. And I'm going to use my healing brush, since there's information to the left here that would work actually well, or quite well. I'm just going to go ahead and make my brush size a little bit smaller and paint over the areas that I want to kind of clone over. And even with just the basic clone, that looks great. Like, you wouldn't be able to tell that I did anything in that area because it's a very simple area to work on. All right. And I realize that this is an example where there wasn't a whole lot of conflicting contrast or shadows or anything like that. And the object was relatively small. But I want to show you that because you got to pay attention to what it is that you're trying to remove. If I was going to try and remove my daughter from this entire image, that would be a big deal. And that would be a little bit more difficult. But you can also see that there's a little black clip down here. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that as well. I'm going to make my brush size just a touch smaller. And then I'm going to paint around here. Now, I'm using the healing brush. So this is going to sample pixels to the left. And that does a really good job. So the point here is make sure you're using the right tool to modify your image. Just because there's new tools in 2025 doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go and grab the new tool, because the previous tool, or the tool that's been in ON1, works really, really well for this situation. And it's okay if it's repeating because it is so unnoticeable, and because it's so many repetitions of the same texture and look in the image, you can't even tell that I modified it there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the blue check mark. And that's going to commit those changes to my image. And like I said earlier, I got a new layer. So if I turn off this layer, you can see that I have the basketball, and I also have the little black bracelet here. And if I turn on the layer where I made the edits, the basketball goes away and the bracelet also goes away. So now I feel like this image is good to go. It just needs a little bit of a style to the overall image. And the way that I'm going to style this image is actually modifying the colors first. So I'm going to hit Add Filter. I'm going to click on Color Enhancer. And in the More section, I actually have a new technique that I've been trying out for a little while. And I'm going to share it here with you. It's called Remove Color. And so essentially it turns my photo black and white. But all I did was I went into each of these channels and I just pulled the saturation down. Now, I'm not going to leave this photo in black and white, but I now get to reintroduce the color. So I'm going to pull the red maybe to there. I get to reintroduce the color back into the image. And for me, this gives me a little bit more flexibility to decide which colors I want to be brighter or darker. So like this orange color, I can go ahead and pull the brightness down on that because I think that that would work better overall. And I can leave the saturation a little bit lower. This gives me like that faded look where my colors aren't so intense. All right. And now we'll go ahead and add in the yellow, and you can see what that's doing in the background there. And I can also really pay attention to the hue of the color that I'm modifying. So I really enjoy working this way. So if I wanted to make those yellows a little bit more orange, and then knowing that orange, I just made orange a little bit darker. So now I'm darkening some things down in the image overall. Now we can come over to the greens, and I will pull up my greens and maybe move those a little bit more towards the yellow. Okay, so now I'm starting to gain a little bit more color fidelity into the palette on my image. So let's go over to the aquas. Let's pull that up. And if I can't tell what it's doing, if I pull this to like 100% saturation and I still can't tell what it's doing, I think it's actually back here in these greens. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and I'm going to pull the saturation down and then pull the saturation all the way up. Yeah. So it's definitely in those greens back there, but I don't really like what it's doing to the greens back here. It's making them more aqua, obviously, because that's what it is. So I'm going to pull up on the range. So it selects more of what ON1 is believing to be an aqua color. I'm just going to pull the hue down over towards the greens. And what that's going to do is make it a little bit more green, or at least it should. And I think that this color can also be made darker. So we'll do something like that. Okay. Let's go ahead and zoom out. And now we will come over to our blues and we'll pull up on blue. And you can see how that jumps right into the jean jacket that my daughter is wearing. And so what I want to do is probably make the blues a little bit brighter so that way she pops from the background, because I made the oranges darker earlier. I want the foreground elements to be a little bit brighter. Now we'll come over to the purples and we'll pull up on the purples. And because of the complexion of my daughters, you can see that that starts to bring back some information in their skin tone. And I really like that. Maybe make it a little bit brighter so that way they glow. And I will actually push the purples more towards the magenta hue, because that's my last one here. And I think that that's what's going to recover the rest of their skin tone, which it does. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up on the saturation here. And then I'm going to push the magentas more towards the red. And I'm also going to brighten this up. And I think something like this. So if I turn this off, you can see that it's a very saturated image, and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way. However, when I turn this on and turn on the color enhancer, you can see that it's really just adjusting the color to a little bit more of a muted saturation that everything isn't desaturated equally. Things are desaturated based off of their color range, and that's what I actually appreciate about this look. So now let's go ahead and hit add filter. I like to follow this color effect up with a glow, and I'll just go ahead and push that all the way up, and then I think I'll leave it as soft light. So turning it off and then turning it back on. And whenever I push a glow to this particular effect, then I also need to counteract that with a tone enhancer. And what I want to do is open up the shadows just a bit, and then we'll even open up the exposure, push the contrast, and then maybe push the clarity just a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is turn off that tone enhancer, turn it back on. And yeah, it's definitely helping with the overall look in the image. So the next thing that I would probably do to this particular image is add in a sunshine filter. And that's just going to help with the overall warmth in the image. So I'll pull down the amount, push up on the warmth. And I think that this is the final look. I'll go ahead and add in a vignette, hit Big Softy, probably dial this back a little bit because that's a tad much. Maybe even make the size just a little bit larger. So let's go ahead and turn off the effects. So this is the photo coming straight into ON1. And then this is the final version that I would send out to my kids, so that way they have this available to them. So I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark, and that's going to be that. So hopefully you found some value in this video here in Photo Raw 2025. I have more content that's going to be coming, showing you how to use some of the newer tools, but this was just my introduction to what is to come. Now, if you want to pick up ON1 Photo Raw, consider using the coupon code FreeWillPhotos20 to save a little bit of money at checkout. I do make a small commission off of that, and I greatly appreciate everyone who supports the channel in that way. If you want to learn more about using ON1 Photo Raw, you can either go to the description box below and click on the link to learn how to sign up for a one-on-one coaching call, where I walk you through a custom workflow specifically for your needs inside of ON1, or you can click the video that's on the screen now. Until next time, I want you to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.